Hello, welcome to today's webinar. Today we'll be talking about the landscape of lead generation on Meta in 2023. So first I'll do a little introduction, then we'll also talk about iOS 14.5 that hit a few years ago, and all of the basic overview on that, and then all of the changes that have come from that. Lead generation collection on the Facebook platform, lead generation off platform, campaign objectives, audience best practices, ad creative best practices, general optimizations, tips, and conclusion and key points. So first, a little bit about myself. I am the Director of Paid Social Advertising here at eBoost for the past 6 years, and I've got about 10 or 11 years in digital advertising experience as a whole. I'm originally from Redondo Beach, California, but now I live here in sunny San Diego. I'm a proud dog dad to Buddy, Cruiser, and Ollie. Buddy is the brown dog, and Ollie is the little grayish black dog. Some of my own hobbies include playing basketball, love the NBA, Formula One racing, mountain biking. So, who is eBoost Consulting? So, eBoost Consulting is a data-driven, results-oriented boutique digital marketing agency based here in San Diego. Our craft is paid media, and our mission is to help great brands thrive through digital advertising. We're also proud members of the 1% of the Planet, where we support our nonprofit partner, Wild Coast. So, in this presentation, we'll be covering some common or not so common acronyms here. So, feel free to pause the video and screenshot this for future reference. So, first is the TLDR, or the too long didn't read, of iOS 14.5 privacy changes from Meta. So, this was big news circa 2021, but still has lasting implications to this day. Key points are that users must opt in to be tracked. So I'm sure everyone who has a smartphone, which is literally everyone, has probably seen those little pop-ups, especially if you have iOS devices or iPhones, where it asks you if you want to be tracked by an app. So that is directly because of these iOS 14.5 privacy changes that hit. Meta has, as a result of this, Meta has significantly less visibility into actions that users take outside of Facebook or Instagram platforms. So that means any traffic that goes off of Facebook and Instagram that goes over to a website, actions that happen on the website are now significantly, I won't say eliminated, it has some visibility into them, but it's significantly reduced from the golden era before we were able, as advertisers, we were able to see a lot more of those kind of actions. You also need to verify your domain with Facebook now. The attribution window has been cut to just 7 days. So previously, if someone had clicked on an ad, gone to the website, maybe not made a purchase, waited a week or 2 or 3, and then decided to make a purchase, that purchase would actually be back attributed all the way to 28 days. That's almost an entire month's worth of attribution. However, with these iOS 14.5 changes, all of that's changed. Now, the longest that Meta is able to see back to attribute a purchase is 7 days. That means if someone clicked on an ad 10 days ago, didn't make a purchase, but then made a purchase today, Meta isn't likely going to be able to report or record that transaction having had come from an ad or a campaign that you were running, because that happened outside of that 7-day window. So that makes it a little bit tougher than in the golden days before. As a result, Meta may use some modeled conversions in its campaign reporting. And the long and short of the modeled conversions is that essentially if Meta feels like enough positive events have occurred where it's statistically incredibly likely that a purchase did occur, but maybe they're just not able to see that final pixel event fire for that purchase to confirm, it'll sometimes model a conversion because it has overwhelming evidence that a purchase did occur, but can't quite confirm that it is there. So just know that you are likely to see modeled conversions in reported data from Meta. And lastly, changes from Meta apply to all traffic and all devices, not just Apple users. A lot of people just thought it was just iOS devices or iPhones that got affected. This is platform agnostic or device agnostic. This is on desktop, this is on Android devices, this is on all iOS devices as well. So it's everywhere. So in summary, there's just less data that Meta can track to optimize and make decisions off of. Advertising in general is just more expensive now. Meta's reporting can't be the only source of truth. You need to look at advertising in a more holistic view. You can't just go off of what Meta reports any longer. You have to incorporate other tools like Google Analytics, and there's plenty of other multi-touch attribution tools out there as well. Although it makes our jobs as advertisers more difficult, it's probably better for society. Probably. Anyway, let's move on to ways to generate leads from Meta ads. So we have two forms. I'm going to start off with lead generation on platform. So these are called lead ads, or I think they're called lead. They used to be called lead ads. Now they've changed them to instant forms, but essentially they're the same thing. If you hear those terms, they're pretty much synonymous. But they do use an instant form that loads within Facebook or Instagram directly. So just like in the little example here, the user clicks on an ad. The ad looks exactly the same as any other ad they would see. When they click on it, though, instead of being taken off of Facebook, off of Instagram, a little mini page opens right up. You'll see it here. There it is. There's a little page. They'll be able to click next. It'll preload information that Facebook or Meta knows about you, and then confirm that you do want to submit this over to the advertiser. And so you can customize these questions and the flow of the form to some degree. There's some limitations. Obviously, it needs to adhere to how Meta and Instagram look. And like I said, it does preload the basic info like name, phone, email, etc. for the user. You can use videos or graphics as the ad creative. And this does work on desktop as well. So it's not just mobile devices. So again, the ads generally look just like regular ads. You would never know that these are lead gen ads. So again, this is kind of what the form looks like. This is another example where you can put some information on the first slide. You can customize kind of that main image there, the header. You can also customize other key questions like budget. In this case, this looks to be a real estate ad. Estimated move-in date. Now, obviously, Meta won't pre-fill those because it doesn't know that much about you, but it will fill in typically email, full name, etc. So here are some of the pros of this, or the positives, is that it really removes a lot of conversion friction. So the instant form loads right away, right within Facebook, right within Instagram, and even preloads the user's information like name, phone number, and email. They're able to just click on through and carry that data and send that directly to you as an advertiser. Time saving, you don't really need to build out a custom landing page. You don't even really need to have your own website, really. There's an asterisk to that. The instant form is fairly customizable in terms of what questions and information you can gather. It's a lot easier. There's no need to install a Facebook pixel or troubleshoot any pixel issue. There's no AEM ranking or anything else you need to do. Generally, it tends to be cheaper. This is one of my favorite reasons to use this ad form. Is cost per lead tends to be a lot cheaper, and lead volume tends to be much higher using lead ads. And the reason for this that Meta will never tell you, but the real reason for this is that when Facebook, for instance, has a choice to either serve a user an ad that takes that user off of Facebook over to a website, or has the option to serve a very similar looking ad that keeps the user on Facebook or on Instagram, it would prefer to keep the user on the platform because they're likely to stay on the platform and continue to scroll after they're done submitting that form on Instagram, or continue to scroll on Facebook, allowing Facebook to serve them even more ads. So again, when given that tight choice, the algorithm will tend to deliver more of these types of ads that keep the user on platform. It just is helpful for Meta. The other benefit to this is that because the user isn't being taken to another website, we don't have to worry about that whole iOS 14.5 data tracking issues, because all of the information is gathered right within Meta's platform, so tracking isn't impacted by those privacy changes. It also improves retargeting audiences, because Facebook or Meta knows 100% of the people who have clicked your ad. They know everything that happens on the app. Unlike when they come to your website, they don't really see everything that the user does on your website. Now, here are some of the cons of lead ads. Lead ad quality. So because completing the lead form is just so easy for users, it can almost be too easy in a way. When someone has to click an ad and be taken off of Facebook and to your website, they can spend more time looking around and learning more about your services or product. This could lead to higher quality leads in the long run. This also adds more friction to the whole process of clicking an ad and becoming a lead by having to go to your website, as opposed to just happening all on the app. So you're likely going to get fewer leads, but slightly higher quality leads, because anyone who's willing to click an ad, go to your website, explore your website, and then submit information there is probably of higher quality or of higher intent. That's one of the downsides of using the lead forms. This isn't the case every time by any means, but it does tend to happen. So you should connect a CRM to your lead ads too. So lead ads, when people fill in that lead form or that instant form, it stays within your Facebook account for about 90 days, and you need to manually go in and download these lead forms. They'll typically come to you as a CSV form. You can do this daily, you can do this hourly, it's really up to you. Or you can connect directly to a CRM. So Meta has continued to add more and more native integrations and native connections to various CRMs. I'd be very surprised if you're using any major CRM and it's not already integrated directly to Facebook. But common ones would be like HubSpot, LeadsBridge, Salesforce, etc. Or email providers like MailChimp, Klaviyo, tons of them out there. So you really should connect them to a CRM. There's far less customization you can do with these lead forms. You can edit the lead form, but only to a certain degree. You can kind of change that header image. You can change some of the questions that it asks you, but you're generally limited with character use or character counts, how much you can fit in each line, and also like what specific types of data you can collect. Unlike your landing page or website, where you can design it however you'd like, albeit with more work involved. And then terms of service. So you do need to accept Facebook's terms of service, and you must link to your website's privacy policy. This was the little asterisk I mentioned about previously. You do have to provide some sort of privacy policy link to in order to be able to create the lead form, and that's just there to protect Meta and alert the users, or give the user the ability to explore your privacy policy to learn more about how you're going to be using their data. So next we'll talk a little bit about how to build a lead ad form. So, I could spend hours here showing every little aspect of this, but I'm going to start right off from assuming you already have a Facebook account or a Meta account, you already have a business manager, and you've already created an ads manager there. So starting from those prerequisites, you're going to go to your ads manager, you're going to select create. It's usually a green button near the top left. Meta does like to change this all the time, so what I'm saying right now may slightly be different by the time you watch this, but right now this is what it's like. So you go to Ads Manager, you select Create, then you select your campaign objective. In this case, we're going to select lead generation. You're going to name your campaign. You're going to select the Facebook and Instagram page that you want associated with this, and then you're going to select your audience, ad placement, and budget. So we're going to touch more on that later. When you're designing your lead form or your instant form, you're going to choose a format. So do you want your ad to look like a carousel ad? Do you want it to be a single image ad? Do you want to use a video? And then you're going to want to upload the correct images and videos for that. So basically design your ad how you would like it to look. When you create the lead form, you're going to click New Form. And when you do that, another window is going to pop up, and you're going to be able to see essentially what looks like this little screenshot I took here. So you're going to write your ad copy, you're going to write your headline, select your CTA button. We'll touch more on that as well. But from here, you're going to select your form type. You're going to select your intro if you want to add one. You can select your questions. You can also select what information you want to be gathered, like email addresses, full name. You know, if you want to break out full name into first and last or anything else like that, you can also start adding custom questions. So this could be like in that one example for the real estate company where they had budget or expected move-in date. Next, you're going to choose what information you want to collect. So just basically what I was just talking about. Pro tips: the more info you ask for from users, the less likely they are to provide it. So I like to try to keep the fewest amount of questions in the lead form as possible. So typically I'll ask for full name, or I'll ask for first name, last name, and email address. I might ask for phone number if it's necessary, or if I need to ask for like zip code or region, something like that, just to help direct the lead to the right source of the right people who are going to actually activate on this lead. Another pro tip is most CRMs don't accept full names to be all in one column. So instead, it's a good idea to delete full name and separate these out by, instead of full name, change it to first name and last name. That way, when you go to download these or when you go to connect these leads to a CRM, you can port the first name directly to one column and last name directly to another column, and not have to do some trickery with Excel to parse that data out. Cool. The other thing too is you're going to want to click on settings, which is near the top here, and you're going to change the settings tab to click to open. That allows users to share your lead form with their friends. There's some rare cases where you may not want to do this. You may not want to allow users to share the lead form or share your ad. But for the most part, shares are like free advertisement. They've basically shared it to their entire friend group because they found what your ad was to be so valuable to them. So free impressions, why not take them if you can? And who knows, some of their friends may also submit leads to you as well. So you can customize your field names to how you want them tagged in your CRM or your email provider. Some systems have specific requirements on how to intake the form data fields. So when you go to field names, you may need to tag these so that they port properly over to how MailChimp wants them, or how Klaviyo wants them, or how Salesforce wants them, or how you're currently set up in those platforms, or on those platforms. So optional also for advanced users, you can enter any additional tracking parameters you'd like. So you can click this little window and add additional tracking information. So not just about what campaign or what ad set or what ad drove the lead, but also maybe what variation of lead form or other aspects that you may want to include in that tracking. So how to design a Facebook lead ad form continued. So we're going to talk about selecting the form type. This is interesting because this is relatively new from Meta. But essentially they give you two options now. So you have the option for more volume and you have the option for higher intent. So the difference here is that essentially higher intent adds one extra step. So when the user goes through the process of submitting the first name, last name, and all that other information, right after they hit submit, one more additional page comes up. And that additional page basically confirms with them, are you sure you want to send your information to this advertiser? The user then has to not click a button, but they have to slide a button across to send that information over to you. And I think the idea is essentially to prevent people from just button mashing and clicking next, and submitting a lead that they didn't intend to submit. So it's supposed to improve quality by kind of adding more friction to the process. I can't really confirm that it actually changes much. So I typically would rather go for more volume than not. So I typically go for more volume as the option, which is the same process except minus that intermediary page. After that, this is back to the privacy policy link. So you're going to want to select or copy and paste your link to your website's privacy policy. Then you basically click publish and launch the campaign, and that's it. So that entirety was the on-platform lead gen process. Next, let's talk a little bit about the lead generation off-platform. So these are called kind of conversion ads, typically people call them. But essentially what they are is taking traffic and not launching an instant form, but instead launching them to your website or taking them to your website. So it's generally considered the more traditional ad format. The goal of this ad is to take the user off of Facebook, off of Instagram, and over to your own website. You get full control over the user's experience and the information you want to collect from the user, of course, on your website. Generally, they look the same as lead form ads until the user clicks. So, some of the pros. Fully customizable. You can control the website experience. Users can explore more about your company. Users learn more about your business, including reviews or any other content you wish to display. It's your website, it's your landing page, so you can make it look however you want it to look. You can convey whatever information you want to convey. A/B testing, so you can much more easily A/B test variables on your landing page. You can split that traffic as it comes in, and you can have one version of your website where the lead form is on the right, one version of your website where the lead form is on the left, one version where you're asking for more information, one with less information, one with a bright blue background, one with a bright pink background. Whatever you want to do, you can quickly A/B test all that. Having to do that all in lead forms or instant forms, one, you're limited by what you can do, and two, you have to essentially create a new lead form, a new instant form each and every time, and you have to create new ads and new ad sets and new campaigns, likely new campaigns each time to test these variances. More advanced integrations, so you can connect other apps such as CRM and scheduling tools. So for example, you could allow the user to schedule a consultation using a tool like Calendly right on your website. So that's really, really cool. Meta, I don't think Meta has yet implemented that, but I think they are looking to implement that at some point in the future, where they can just have someone, pick a time and date to schedule a call with you right away. There might be higher quality leads. So again, because of that added friction point of being taken to your website, there's just more effort that's required by the user to click the ad, come to your website, complete the information, and then people who do that tend to be of higher quality, or of higher intent, I should say. So some of the cons here, these tend to be more expensive. So again, Meta wants users to remain on their platforms for longer so they can be served more ads. Conversion ads require the user to leave Facebook and Instagram and tend to be more costly, as Meta is less incentivized of the risk of the user leaving and staying off the platforms. So there's just more friction too. People are honestly lazy, and sometimes they don't really want to go to your whole website and look and try to figure out how to submit a lead and all that. They would rather just send their lead and then look at their email later or get a phone call later. And then there's less data. So actions tracked off of the platform require the Meta Pixel. There's more development involved and time just setting that up in the first place. And then data tracked and attributed back to users is significantly limited by the iOS 14.5 privacy changes. So you'll likely see about a third to a fifth of the number of actual conversions. So some prerequisites to building conversion lead ads are you must have set up and installed the Meta Pixel. I've provided links here to how to do that. You must verify your domain with Meta in order to receive any tracking data back. You must configure and rank your tracked conversion events in Meta's AEM. Now, there is word coming through the grapevine that Meta might be removing this as a prerequisite. You may not have to do this in the future, but at the time of recording this, you still do. So, how to build a conversion ad. So, again, skipping over the prerequisites of having made a Facebook or Instagram page, having made a business manager, we're going to jump right in from the point of you're in Ads Manager. So when you're in Ads Manager, you're going to select Create again, but this time instead of selecting lead generation like you did previously, you're going to select Conversions. You're going to name your campaign. You're going to select the Facebook and Instagram pixel, or Instagram page, I should say. Select the audience, ad placement, and budget that you want, so we can touch more on that later, and then select your pixel ID. So there's a little drop-down menu where you can select your actual pixel ID. You want to make sure it's the correct pixel that's currently on your website. When you're designing your conversion ad, choose a format. So we have carousel versus single image versus video, then upload the correct images. So very similar to how you would do it with an instant form example. Write your ad copy, write your headline, and select your CTA button. And that's it, essentially. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about your campaign structure 101. So typically a marketing funnel overview. So the way we think of this is we have an awareness prospecting campaign or funnel, highest up the funnel, I should say. These are going to be cold audiences, generally unfamiliar with your brand. These are people who are just kind of discovering your brand or your product for the first time. Next, we have retargeting. So we have warm audiences who have displayed some level of previous awareness but haven't yet submitted a lead. These people have engaged with your previous ads, organic social media. They generally, click like, follow you already. They've been to your website. They've even opened a lead form possibly, but haven't yet submitted to be a lead. So another way to kind of think of this, or at least the Meta's or Facebook's structure, is typically you have your campaign. In that campaign, which is your overarching objective, be it like instant forms or conversions, or I should say lead gen or conversions, in that overarching campaign, you have groups of ads, and these groups of ads are called ad sets. And this is also, some people call them audiences, because this is the level where you typically pick who you're going to be targeting your ads to. And then beneath that, you have your actual individual ads. So you have your individual ads that are inside of ad sets that are inside of your Facebook campaign. And you can have multiple of these campaigns running at once. So big pro tip here also is have a consistent campaign naming convention. So use a consistent and clear naming convention for all the elements in the campaign. It just makes life so much easier down the line, trust me. So you can make up your own, you can keep your own, but just try to keep consistent with it because it helps with reporting later down the line. Typically, we'll start off with like what stage of the funnel we're in. So prospecting, we might focus on whether we're sending traffic to the website or what the general objective here is, like lead gen. We might call it like test campaign or whatever you want, and then we'll typically post a date of when we launched it. If I have a dedicated end date for this campaign, I might put dash, end date. Same thing for like your ad set. So typically we'll include like whether it's an interest based, are we targeting people interested in dogs, or are we going to do a lookalike based where we're asking Facebook to find us more people who look like a previously uploaded customer list. You could typically include, age range, men, women. You could add anything else you want to the ad set naming convention to kind of help you out. And then for the ad naming convention too. So typically what I would include, assuming it's like an instant form ad, is the lead form name, the image or video name that we're using, or something about the image or the video that is easily recognizable when I'm just looking at the line. So if the image has a bright orange background and another image has a bright blue background, I might call it the bright blue background, or I might make a short acronym for that makes sense to me. And then I might also include an ad copy excerpt. So just something about the ad copy or the headline that's going to help me remember what this ad was for. Same thing with the headline, and then the CTA button. So am I using, learn more, shop now, download now if they're downloading like an ebook, etc. So some creative best practices. So here are some handy dandy links from Meta about their specific dimensions and specs for each ad placement and each ad type. Feel free to pause this video and copy and paste these types of links and go explore. We also have Meta's ad library where you can spy on what other advertisers or what your competitors are running. No need to reinvent the wheel, just see what other advertisers are doing and use it for inspiration. Then we also have our shameless plug, which is our own little Chrome extension for Google Chrome, where when you visit another website, you can click on it and it'll automatically take you to the ads library of that other website, as long as they're currently running ads on Facebook. So feel free to use that to spy on your competition. So, anatomy of an ad. Let's just focus on this for a second. So you will read this first, then you're going to read this, then this one, then you'll read this one. So again, Everyone here primarily focuses on what the main creative is in your ad. After that, they'll typically read the headline, then they'll read any type of description, if there is even a description, then they'll finally read the actual ad copy. Here's a quick little heat map of how people perceive. Here's what the ad looks like. Here's how people perceive it. So most of the attention goes right to the center on the actual creative. Then you start seeing, some of the headline, then the ad copy, and then the kind of the CTA button. So key thing is attention, attention, attention. As an advertiser, your goal is to capture the attention of a target audience member through a combination of visual stimuli in the form of creative, both video and graphic, headline, ad copy, and CTA button. Doesn't really matter how great your product or your offer or your brand is. If you can't capture the attention of your target audience, nobody will pay attention, and honestly, nobody will care. Everyone's so used to seeing ads all the time on their social media platforms. If your ad isn't capturing attention within the first 3 seconds that someone sees it, then honestly, it's just not going to perform as well. Your ads really need to be thumb stopping. So your ads are in competition with the user's attention against an infinite scroll of social media's feeds of like cute puppies and pictures of delicious food and everything else that you're competing against. So you really, really, really need to focus on ad images, ad creative, ad video. That is by far and away going to be the most important element of any campaign's success. For creative copy tips, this is both for the ads themselves as well as elements you can add to the instant form or on your landing page. Creative isn't just for Facebook or Instagram ads. It's also, you can use these tips for your landing pages as well. But essentially, identify pain points that your offer or your product or your service solves. Use simple language. There's been extensive studies on this, but essentially the more simple your language is, the better it tends to perform, the better the ad tends to perform. So typically they found that about a second grader's level of language, I don't know what that says about society, but that's another story. Essentially try to keep your language to that of about a second grader, and communicate how you solve pain points that they may have. Consider your incentive, consider your offer. You're asking people to trade their personal information for something of value. If that perceived trade isn't worth it for the user, if them giving you information about their name, their address, or their email, their phone number isn't valuable or isn't perceived to be an equal trade for the value you're offering them, then you're not going to have a good time with your ads. Include a clear direction to the click to call to action button within the ad copy itself. So what that means is you can clearly specify in the ad copy, click below or complete the lead form to accomplish this or to receive this or to get this. Feel free to call that out in the ad copy itself. Besides the visuals, headlines do more of the heavy lifting, so that would be the next major element to test besides the actual image or the video. Feel free to test longer copy and shorter ad copy. Sometimes we have some clients in which long ad copy actually outperforms short copy. Sometimes it's vice versa. It really depends on the product or the service that you're offering. If using a conversion ad, so sending traffic to your website, you use your ad copy and headline to drive the click and let your website do more of the heavier explanations of what you do. So don't try to craft your ad to be the selling point. Your ad is essentially the bait that gets the fish to bite. Your landing page and your website are what actually reel them in. Same thing with like lead forms. So don't put all the information you have on your lead form on the ad, because no one cares about that at that point. Like, get the ad's there to capture attention, stop the scroll or stop the thumb from scrolling, and get the user to click. Let the instant form and let the landing page do more of the actual selling. And in general, don't make your audience think too hard. Be clear with an incentive of what you want your user to do and keep it really simple. For visual creative tips, video tends to outperform static images. Just in general, video can convey more information very quickly than just a static image can do. The first 3 seconds of a video need to be the absolute strongest attention-grabbing seconds of the video. We usually see about a 50 to 75% drop-off in video watch time if the first 3 seconds aren't attention-grabbing. So when editing a video, ask your video editor, or if you're doing it yourself, have the, other 97% of the video be the same, but those first 3 seconds, that first 3% of the video, feel free to have different variations of what that entry hook is, or what's that element in that video that really captures attention there. Feature your product or your service early on in the video. Don't wait and hold the product till the end. Feature it right up front. Design your video for a mobile experience. So really, everyone is on mobile. Most of your traffic is going to come from mobile. Don't do a horizontal video. Don't do a video that only really works on desktop in expanded mode. Know that almost all your traffic is going to be on mobile, so design your video for that as well. Same thing with your images. And honestly, I should have added also in here your landing page. If you are driving traffic to your website needs to be mobile optimized first. Most of your traffic is going to be mobile anyway. Use captions. So design your video for a sound off experience. Most of your ad delivery will be mobile traffic. Most users have their audio shut off. So you want to have captions on your videos. Next, we have for images, use bright colors that stand out against the Facebook and Instagram's kind of default color schemes. And testing UGC, user-generated content, is the hottest trend right now. And it's also one of the lowest costs to create. You don't need a fancy, smancy, video studio. Really, it's selfie videos typically do really, really well. It's that TikTok style has now migrated to Instagram and Facebook as well. So really test UGC content. We're seeing that grow more and more and more. Audience best practices, targeting options. So Meta will allow you to target your ads to audiences in a variety of ways. Interest targeting, so Meta builds profiles of its users based on their likes, their activities, websites that they visited, other pages or accounts that they follow or have engaged with. And then they kind of group these into like various interests that each user has. So you can typically go, for interest-based targeting for this example here, we have dogs and they have other things here. Now, one thing to note is Meta keeps pulling more and more, and I say pulling, I mean removing more and more and more of these kind of detailed targeting, detailed interests. So don't be surprised if you try to go search for something and it's not there or isn't going to be there in the future. Meta is continuously pushing more towards the next option, which are custom audiences and lookalike audiences. So custom audiences allow you to create an audience based on pixel data from your website or customers like email list or your Shopify export, and you can upload that data directly into Facebook or into Meta. And Meta will take and try to find who these people are and match them to who they are on Facebook. And then from those custom audiences, we can build lookalike audiences. So in this example, Meta will take all of those users that it found, try to find commonalities that most of them have in common, be it age or what interests they have or what websites they visited or other elements that they all have in common. And then we'll go try to find you like 1% of the US population or whatever country's population that have the most things in common with the seed list that you've uploaded as a custom audience. And again, that could be pixel data, that could be custom uploaded lists from exports from Shopify or whatever. But Meta tends to be pushing more towards these lookalike audiences than the interest-based audiences, as well as just broad targeting. So broad targeting is where you just essentially give Meta maybe like gender, or you give them age related factors and kind of limit things by that, or geographic factors, and then let Meta's algorithm do all of the targeting for you and try to find the right people. And typically those struggle in the beginning, but over time, as Meta's algorithm gets better and better at delivering your ads, that ends up being one of the best performing ad sets, or audiences I should say, just the broad targeting. So next, you're going to want to start with typically 3 to 4 audiences, or again, ad sets here. Broad audience, one of the ones I mentioned. Set the age limit to be at least 18 plus, I don't think you can even gather leads from people younger than that. I don't know why you would necessarily, but typically you want to go 18 plus and then focus on any other limiting factors, like I mentioned, geographic, regions, or gender. And then another option, another good one to start with is just interest and behavior based. So test variations of different combinations of interests and behaviors, and then lookalike audiences of past leads, or lookalike audiences of people who've come to your website. Now, if you're starting brand new and you have no history, making a lookalike audience to start with is difficult because you have nothing to teach Facebook on or teach Meta on how to create that lookalike audience. So in that case, I would focus more on the broad and interest behaviors and maybe launch an additional one or two there until you start getting enough data to build a lookalike audience. And enough data is typically 500 to 1,000 completed actions that you want. That's a starting point. Set it and forget it. Let Meta optimize delivery based on results. Don't go in there and make small, pausing this, launching this, duplicating this, moving this around. Try to go hands off for at least 7 to 10 days minimum, depending on your spend, obviously. But really try to let Meta deliver the ads as you've set them up based on your budget. Let your data dictate your targeting decisions, not the other way around. So follow the data. Don't follow your own intuition. If the data is telling you that this audience or these types of ads are performing better, the data is not lying. So keep producing more variations of that ad, or keep exploring more audiences like that. Setting budgets. So essentially, the more you spend, the faster you accumulate data. The less you spend, the more time it takes to generate data. And data is key here. So I'm not saying don't spend your entire budget, but when factoring in, your thought process for how much you're going to spend on a campaign, know that the first 2 weeks to a month, you're going to be spending money on, or fairly inefficiently. But the primary goal of that is to gather as much data for both you and also for the Meta's delivery algorithm to get better and better over time. You can use the information that you do gather within those first 7, 10, 2 weeks or so to start shifting or start working on new audiences, start working on new ads. But just know that the more you spend, or that budget is directly correlated to how much data and speed of that data. Either way, you're going to get the same amount of data. And so it doesn't really matter. If you spend it all up front, you're going to get it quicker. If you take a longer time to spend it, it's just going to take longer to actually make decisions. Optimization best practices. So you can really only optimize as well as the data you collect. After your campaigns have had a time to deliver and Meta has reported some data, it's time to start evaluating that performance. Establish a baseline cost per lead and work backwards from that. CPC, so cost per click and click-through rate, essentially represent both how well your ads resonate with your audiences, as well as ultimately the cost of the traffic that it takes to either the lead form or the website. So those are two key elements that I really, really, really look at, is cost per click and click-through rate. That is essentially, like I said, it's how well your ads are resonating with the target audience. If your cost per click is very high and your click-through rate is very low, that's just telling you that you really need to work on either your ad copy or your ads, or your audiences are far too narrow and people don't care. So you got to find a way to make them care and capture their attention. And then conversion rate essentially represents how convincing your offer is. So if you're driving all this traffic and it's all opening the instant page, the instant forums, or they're all coming to your website, but they're not converting, something there is causing too much hesitancy for them. So start working on, first first capture the attention, get the click, then focus on conversion and improving conversion rate, and then kind of figure out what your cost per lead is and continuously try to bring that down over time. Optimizing your campaign, so improving traffic. So always strive to improve your cost per click and your click-through rate by testing audiences and creatives and various messaging. Pro tip, test 1 or 2 variables at a time so you know what variables are responsible for the changes in performance. There's obviously seasonality that comes into play. There's holidays, there's holiday weekends that can kind of throw off your data. But generally, if you're testing more than 1 or 2 variables, like if you're testing a new image and a new video and new ad copy all at the same time, depending on your budget and depending on the amount, like the complexity of your campaigns, that might be too much to test simultaneously. So you may want to only test just one new video creative, or test just one new audience at a time to start to see what is actually moving the needle here. And then improving your conversion rate. So test different lead forms, test that different higher intent, test against the more volume, see what kind of results you're getting from those. Test collecting fewer user details. So if you're built out your lead form to have too many user details, then try bringing that down to just like first name and email or something like that. Because you can always gather more information later. Key thing is getting the people into your flow, into your email CRM or onto your website. Test a stronger incentive to submit the lead. So maybe the perceived value of trading my information for what you're going to give me just isn't there for me or for the average user. So test increasing that incentive. Test various website elements, including reviews, testimonials, to improve perceived social validation of your brand. So if you have testimonials, if you have people in who look like the audience that you're sending traffic to, who are all providing positive things, lots of engagement, comments, likes, shares, people who are coming on your landing page who have lots of positive 5-star reviews for your product or your service, make sure you showcase those. Those go a long way. So again, key points overall. Lead ads are great for simplicity and generating volume of leads. Conversion ads add more friction but can be more customizable. Creative testing is the most important, followed by headline and then copy testing. Test various audiences. Go broader when in doubt. That tends to be the right way to go. Keep a consistent naming scheme and organize your campaigns. It's going to help you down the line, trust me. Even though it's annoying when you're building it out, trust me, it's worth the extra 2 minutes it takes to name everything properly. And then lower cost of traffic by optimizing your cost per click and click-through rate, and improve conversion rate by optimizing lead forms on landing pages and experiences. If you have any questions, feel free to check us out at eboostconsulting.com or reach out to me directly at ryan@eboostconsulting.com. And I hope you found this valuable, and yeah, have a great day.